Vladimir Vladimirovich TASS Agency. Allow me to return to the peace plan. One gets the impression that the Western side, proposing such quick, fast meetings, insisting on them, as if is somewhat pressing on Russia and on you in particular. It's understandable that everyone wants to achieve peace as quickly as possible, but it seems that such questions don't tolerate haste. In your opinion, isn't there a risk that if the treaty is cobbled together on the knee, sewn with white threads, there will be a temptation subsequently to interpret it quite freely? And you just said that every word there requires discussion. How much time will this take in general?
Well, I specifically drew your attention to the fact that each of the questions that is stated in those lists transmitted to us has a very important, if not to say key. Each of them is a key theme. You understand? Therefore, this requires serious work. And probably some of our partners strive for the resolution of these questions as quickly as possible. Why? We were already asked here by colleagues about what's happening at the line of contact, asked about the position of American negotiators. Well, what's happening? Look, let me, for example, return now to Kupyansk. Well, let's start with the zone of responsibility of our center grouping. Where do the main events take place there? In the Krasnoarmeysk direction and around the city of Dimitrov. Krasnoarmeysk and Dimitrov are completely surrounded, just as Kupyansk once was. 70% of the territory of Krasnoarmeysk is in the hands of Russian armed forces. In the south of Dimitrov city, the enemy grouping is cut off. It's being dissected throughout the city, and our troops are moving to its systematic destruction. And then what? If you look at the map, look, shift your gaze to the map. In the northeast, there further is Komsomolsk, and north of Komsomolsk is Kupyansk, Slavyansk. A little further north, northeast is Seversk. In Komsomolsk, inside the city, combat actions are taking place, and already a significant number of buildings have been liberated by our troops, and advancement continues further. As for Seversk, which I said is located in the northeast, our troops approached this city from the east, from the south, and from the north. Active combat actions are taking place in the city. Of, it seems, 8,000 buildings, 1,500 are in our hands. And you understand, if they approached from the north, from the south, from the east, what is all this leading to there? The question is very difficult for the Ukrainian side, for the Ukrainian armed forces. If you look north, the city of Seversk, of 8,000 and buildings, of 8,000 it seems, yes, I said Seversk, of 8,11700 and further north. If you look, there are north grouping works, Volchanks, but almost completely in our hands. This is in the Kharkov direction. Now look what's happening in Zaporizhzhia region. In Zaporizhzhia region, a fortified area was built by the enemy over 10 years. They started taking care of this from 2014, and then it was strengthened, against which our Dnieper grouping stands. Well, a serious fortified area, our Dnieper grouping, works there. In some sections, thanks to the heroism of our guys, they break through the defense in important sections. But the point is not even this, but that another of our groupings east broke through the enemy's defense and is advancing at a rapid pace in the north of Zaporizhzhia region, on the border of Zaporizhzhia and Dnipropetrovsk regions, and is moving, I repeat, at very fast pace. They already approached the town of Gulyaipol. This is an important logistics point. Somewhere they approached 1.52 kilometers to Gulyaipol. Will they take it now, in the near future, or not? but they will definitely go further. What does this mean? This means that the troops of the East grouping are practically bypassing the entire fortified area of the AFU from the north. Against them, on one hand, stands our Dnieper grouping, and the East grouping bypasses them from the north. And this can lead to the collapse of the front in this section. Here lies the difference between those in the West who want to achieve peace as quickly as possible, even at the cost of some mutual concessions, including from the Ukrainian side. Because if everything that happened in Kupyansk will happen in those sections I just mentioned, then the collapse of the front will be inevitable. Someone wants to believe that the same Kupyansk. On November 4th, I remind you, the head of the Kyiv regime reported that in 5-7 days, it would be in the hands of the AFU. Now, as is known, the enemy grouping there is completely eliminated. The city is completely in our hands. And on the left bank of the Oskol River, 15 more battalions are blocked. That's 3,500 people. And some of our commanders say that individual AFU servicemen in this area already look like homeless people. This is not a joke. Well, imagine 3,500 people there to throw food there with copters, worn-out food, ammunition. Well, this is impossible. They're already in such a state, I don't know, not for 1 week. They're practically closed now. Well, so, those in the West who understand what this can lead to insist on stopping combat actions as quickly as possible. And even if this will require some concessions from the Kyiv regime, because they understand the front will start collapsing in certain sections, and then the armed forces in Ukraine will generally lose combat capability. They will lose the most combat-capable units, as is happening now in the Krasnoarmeysk area, and they say, enough for you, save the backbone of the armed forces and your statehood. This is what we need to think about, say, representatives of this point of view. And others who believe that Kupyansk has already returned under the control of the armed forces of Ukraine insist on continuing combat actions to the last Ukrainian. That's the difference in approaches. And whoever attacks Mr. Witkoff, these are representatives of another point of view, who want, together with the Ukrainian establishment, to steal money and continue combat actions to the last Ukrainian. I already said publicly, in principle, we are ready for this,